on a regular basis, pretty much anybody who writes for the Weekly Standard, suggesting that what conservatives need to do is adapt to this new era of big government, accept the fact that the public wants government handouts and government programs and needs to give it to them, and then hang some free market bells and whistles along the way. So if the public wants a national health care program, conservatives should put forward a national health care program, and then maybe work a couple of market mechanisms in along the way. Do something like what Mitt Romney did in Massachusetts and have a Hillary Care type of plan with a little bit of market framework built into it. The second group is a group that really wants to take a more populist approach. They want to combine kind of a hard line on social issues that need to get back into the social issues and the culture war. Combine that with a populist message that's anti-big business, anti-bank, anti-trade, anti-immigration, and make it that the structure. And you see Mike Huckabee, I think, is one of the primary people who's out promoting this line of conservatism. And then the third group, where my sympathies lie, I'll be frank, is a group that wants to return to the Reagan and Goldwater values of limited government and individual liberty, that says that what we really need to do is understand that the essence of what conservatism about is choice. And in fact, that is actually the essence of politics. If I could, steal a little bit from my boss, Ed Crane, who likes to point out that if you take all the isms of politics, conservatism and liberalism and Marxism and socialism and libertarianism and whatever the isms are, in the end they boil down to a single question. Who decides? Do you get to decide where your kids are going to go to school, or does someone else make that choice for you? Do you decide what charities you're going to get to support, or does someone else? Do you get to decide how you're going to save for your retirement? Does someone else make that decision? Do you decide what doctor you're going to see and what treatment you're going to get for health care? Or there's another bureaucrat somewhere in Washington in charge of that? And if you put it down to that basic question, then you get an idea of the values that conservatism should be promoting. And we talk about needing a conservative agenda, and you're going to hear a lot of really good ideas today, ideas that I support wholeheartedly. And we talk about the need to go back to the idea of we need lower taxes, and we need smaller government, and we need more accountability and more transparency, and we need free market health care reform, and we need personal accounts for Social Security, we need to fight the entitlement crisis that's coming in this country. All these things are correct. But where I would start in forming this new agenda is I'd go back to a very simple idea that Barry Goldwater said. He said every day he asked one simple question of himself: am I advancing freedom? And I think that if we ask that question of every agenda item, of every legislative proposal we put forward, does it make us freer? Do we have more liberty? Are we more in charge of those choices in our own lives? Then we will have an agenda of true conservatism and an agenda that the American people will support. I thank you very much for listening to me. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
We won't laugh at you, maybe.
It seems to me as though the key to your thoughts are in invoking policies that encourage personal responsibility. If you get right down to the bottom of it, I mean, that's the most basic thing there. And I'd like to hear a little bit about that in itself, as to the you know, when you reject the idea of government doing everything for you, you have to embrace the ideology that now I'm going to do it for myself. In a society that has been indoctrinated to government doing everything for you, what's the first steps of returning to doing it for yourself? Simply legislatively denying it, denying programs, or?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think the answer is stop. I mean, to some extent, what you're dealing with is someone's. You know, I believe in cold turkey. You've got someone on heroin. You know, essentially, you've got to cut them off, not give them a little less heroin. And I think that's one of the most, I think, perverse things that's going on about this whole bailout right now. It's not just that we've just added already this year $1.3 trillion to the debt we're passing on to our kids and our grandkids. It's that we're creating the idea in our society that no one can fail, that the banks are too big to fail, the insurance company's too big to fail, the auto industry's too big to fail. Heck, Joe's Auto Body Shop down the street's too big to fail. I mean, we've got this society that now says that failure is inherently bad, and it's government's job to protect everyone from everything that could possibly go wrong. Your housing price can never go down. Gas prices can never go up. And we've got to get people away from this idea. And every time we step in and we say, but this time the circumstances are so grave that we have to act. There's always going to be a this time, and the circumstance is so grave. And we end up with, you can't draw those distinctions. At some point, you've just got to say no. And I really encourage legislators to learn that word. It doesn't seem to be part of many legislative vocabularies.
And one other question is given the fact that most of the decisions that American people and Montanans in particular have to make is, well, how am I going to save for my kids' education without assistance? How am I going to provide for myself? There seems to be an underlying current of the valuation of our monetary system being based on a currency that has no value. So until we correct that, I think that's the underlying current of something. And in states' issues, I'd like to hear your opinion of what can states do on a federal issue such as that, because of our association with the federal government and the monetary system.
Yeah, I'm not a monetary economist, so I'll defer to some extent on the details of monetary policy. I mean, I will say that you're limited. I mean, we have a national currency, and I mean, to some extent, the idea of developing individual currencies exists to some extent. That's what a traveler's check is actually a private currency. Credit cards have become sort of a private currency. So there are sort of alternatives that are out there that people use. But essentially, as a state government, you're going to use U.S. dollar, and there's not a whole lot of impact that the state government can have on that sort of thing. But I do agree in the end you're going to have some sort of sound dollar policy, which we don't. We go from the weak dollar policy to strong dollar policy. We try to deal with the international currency markets in ways that I think often create more problems than good. I think you go back to some sort of Friedmanite thing. I mean, part of the whole problem that led up to this financial crisis was Alan Greenspan's deliberate attempt to pump currency in to keep interest rates low. You had the whole Fed policy that tried to deliberately hold down interest rates. Monetary policy wasn't sort of being based on the sort of general rules of monetary policy. It was designed with political goals in mind, and that I think helped contribute to some of the problems that we're seeing now.
Mike, I like your breakdown of the three factions of the right-leaning side, the David Brooks and the Weekly Standard, Tim Pawlenty, Mike Huckabee. But the one you like, you named as the Reagan Goldwater, and they're both dead.
Yeah.
Do you see anybody on the horizon who can articulate that message, who has access to a national microphone, other than Cato? In addition to Cato?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are some folks out there that offer some hope for limited government. Mark Sanford, the governor of South Carolina, who was actually just turning down a federal bailout of his state. When so many governors are saying you have to